And welcome to Wise Guys. These guys know sports. Here on this Friday, October the 13th, in the house with your boy Trey Larkins on the Wise Guys Sports Show. Everybody remember going to follow Wise Guys on Twitter at WiseGuys_H. Also on Facebook, Wise Guys. And be sure to follow Wise Guys on Instagram at These Guys Know Sports. Come on in and sit a while, folks. We got an action jam-packed show. So many things to get into. Week 6 in the NFL is upon us. I'm going to give everyone my NFL Week 6 Wise picks. Any particular topic or matchup that you're looking forward to the most in the NFL this weekend, call in. We can talk about it on the show this afternoon. We got some big-time matchups in the NFL this weekend. We got the Seattle Seahawks traveling to Cincinnati to take on the Cincinnati Bengals. That's in the 1 o'clock window. And then Monday night, we got Dak Prescott versus Justin Herbert. So I'm excited for that matchup as well. Cowboys, Chargers, SoFi Stadium on Monday Night Football. So I'm going to break down both of those matchups here in a bit. Also, Lakers head coach Darvin Ham, he wants Anthony Davis to shoot more threes. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later on in the show as well. The number to dial is 513-203-8655. 513-203-8655 is the number to dial. Any particular topic you want to discuss, we can talk about it on the show this afternoon. But we begin in the NFL with Thursday night football. It was a Kansas City Chiefs masterpiece as the Chiefs beat the Broncos 19-8. The Chiefs have now beaten the Broncos 16 straight times. That is the most wins over a single opponent in NFL history. A long streak in NFL history. Chiefs have beaten the Broncos 16 times. For the Broncos, Russell Wilson, he went 13-22. He threw for 95 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. For the Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes went 30 of 40. He threw for 306 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Actually, And welcome back to Wise Guys. These guys know sports. Had some technical difficulties. We are live back on the Worldwide Sports Network. Everybody remember going to follow Wise Guys on Twitter at WiseGuys_H. Also on Facebook, Wise Guys. And be sure to follow Wise Guys on Instagram at These Guys Know Sports. The number to dial is 513-203-8655. 513-203-8655. That is the number to dial. Any particular game that you're interested in this weekend that you want to discuss, we can talk about it on the show. Big time matchups in the NFL. I'm going to break down all of those matchups here in a bit. But we begin in Kansas City with Thursday night football as Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs beat Russell Wilson and the Denver Broncos 19-8. The Chiefs have beaten the Broncos 16 straight times. That is the longest active winning streak in the NFL. With one team against a single opponent, the Chiefs have beaten the Broncos 16 straight times. That's the most right now in the NFL. For the Broncos, Wilson, he went 13 of 22. He threw for 95 passing yards, one touchdown, two interceptions. For the Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes went 30 of 40. He threw for 306 passing yards, one touchdown, one interception. Here's Chiefs head coach Andy Reid after the game.
The crowd was phenomenal. Bucker was phenomenal. He ceases to amaze me with his kicking. He's so reliable and does a great job with that. Our defense was incredible tonight, as they have been. I think at halftime they had 39 yards or so passing, and that's quite a feat. So my hat goes off to Sean and his group there. They're trying to build something right there, and that's they're working at it. And he's a good football coach. He's got a good staff and good players. So our hat goes off to them. And then offensively, we got to take care of business in the red zone. Had a lot of yards, positive yards, but you can't stall down there. You can't have penalties. You can't have fake field goal. We probably want to have that one back on the QB sneak. So
that was Chiefs head coach Andy Reid in the immediate aftermath of the Chiefs 19-8 win over the Broncos. Again, the Chiefs have beaten the Broncos 16 straight times. So, when I look at the Denver Broncos, right now, the biggest issue with the Denver Broncos is Sean Payton and Russell Wilson are a match made in hell. They are not a match made in heaven. They are a match made in hell because stylistically, the quarterback and the coach are complete opposite. When I think about relationships, I feel like the most successful relationships are the relationships, or a marriage as well. A successful relationship or a marriage is a relationship or a marriage that started off with two individuals who are healed, who know what they want and expect in a partner, but they are able to bring to the table exactly what they expect their partner to bring to the table, and they're able to court each other and date each other in the dating phase. But then you have those people who are in relationships and marriages who are fresh out of a previous relationship, and they are not over their ex, and they date each other, and the relationship never is successful because you didn't court each other or date each other the right way. It's a match made in hell because the relationship was not built off the right foundation. That's the same with Russell Wilson and Sean Payton. Sean Payton, they never chose each other. When you date and you court, you choose each other. When you are fresh out of a breakup and you're heartbroken, sometimes you just fall for the next person who you're dating because you want somebody to help you feel better over a previous heartbreak. That's how Wilson and Sean Payton relationship is. They're not a match made in heaven because Sean Payton, his system is built for a quarterback like Drew Brees, who takes the snap, drops back the pass, and throws the football out of his hands immediately. 2.5 seconds. Russell Wilson is the opposite. He's the kind of quarterback who's an improv quarterback. So he likes to make plays with his legs in the open field, on the run. He's not the kind of quarterback who is a typical drop back to pass quarterback and have the ball out of his hands in 2.5 seconds. And that's Sean Payton's system. And that's why Sean Payton and Wilson are not a great fit from a quarterback and head coach standpoint. That's the biggest issue right now with the Denver Broncos. They are that couple who basically fell for each other, and you think you're in love, but you're really not in love. This is just the next person after your previous relationship, and they're just helping you cope and have someone who you can call a boyfriend or girlfriend. This is just your next partner. But this is not someone who you actually dated, actually courted, actually took some time to get to know. And I feel like Russell Wilson and Sean Payton was put together because of the Denver Broncos organization being a mess. They're paying Wilson a lot of money right now, and he's not an elite quarterback anymore. And I want to talk about him because when you look at Russell Wilson, so far this year, Russ has 12 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 1,305 passing yards. He's completing 66% of his passes. But if you really watch the games, Russ is not good anymore. If you really watch games start to finish and you look at film, you can tell that Russ is no longer the player in Denver that he once was in Seattle. Russ has trouble being able to get away from defenders. He doesn't have the foot speed that he once had, and his accuracy comes and goes. That interception that he threw last night was an awful, awful pass. It was awful. And the linebacker read it perfectly. He read it perfectly. The linebacker for the Chiefs that got that interception, it was Bolden. He read that play perfectly and read Wilson's eyes and picked the pass off. 95 passing yards from Russell Wilson. 95 passing yards? Like, that is pathetic. Let's look at the Denver Broncos last night offensively. This is the Denver Broncos. These are all their drives. They go turnover on downs, interception, 4 straight punts, interception, punt, touchdown, fumble. That's all they had last night. That was it. Russell Wilson, his passing yards, that 95 passing yards was the third fewest of his career, and his QBR was a 10.1. That's the second lowest of his career. He was awful last night. But he wasn't the only one that was awful. Sean Payton also was awful. In the second quarter, at the end of the half, Russell Wilson got sacked. And it's like under 25 seconds in the half, and it's 4th down. Sean Payton inexplicably calls a timeout. He calls a timeout, and why are you calling? What are you doing? Like, get into field goal range to kick a field goal before the half. Why the hell is Sean Payton calling a timeout with under 25 seconds and his team is already down 10 points? What are you doing, Sean? That was a horrible decision by Sean Payton. He said it in the post-game press conference about how he made a mistake. Why are you calling a timeout? That's giving Mahomes and the Chiefs offense more time to get into field goal range and kick a field goal before halftime. That was a horrible decision by Sean Payton. And you look at this Denver Broncos football team. This season, the Broncos, this is defensively, opponents are averaging 36 points per game. That's ranked dead last in the NFL against the Broncos defense. Opponents are averaging 451 total yards per game. That's ranked dead last in the NFL. Opponents going up against the Broncos defense, they're averaging 7.0 yards per play. That's ranked dead last in the NFL. They are also averaging 188 rushing yards per game. That's ranked dead last in the NFL. And opponents' passer rating against the Broncos defensively is 124.6. That also is ranked dead last in the NFL. Defensive coordinator Vance Joseph, he deserves some of this blame as well. But this is on Sean Payton. The 2023 Denver Broncos are worse than the 2022 Denver Broncos. And remember in the offseason, Sean Payton had all of these things to say about Nathaniel Hackett. He talked about how this is the worst coaching job in NFL history and basically blamed Nathaniel Hackett for the Broncos' struggles last season. And he gave us the impression that he was going to be the right coach to fix Russell Wilson. And it has been a pathetic coaching job by Sean Payton in these first 6 weeks. It is bad right now in Denver. If you are a Denver Broncos fan, it is awful. The only reason why the Denver Broncos got one win this season is because they went up against a Chicago Bears football team that from an organization standpoint is worse than them. That's the only reason why the Broncos are 1-5. They should be 0-6, but they were able to overcome a double-digit deficit against Justin Fields and the Bears in week 4, I believe, and they won that game. But they could easily right now be 0-6, easily. And so it is a mess right now with the Denver Broncos. And now you got to start wondering, should they sell at the trading deadline? Because at 1-5, you're not making the playoffs in the AFC. The Denver Broncos season is officially over. And so you got players on their roster who I actually think can play, but they also have underachieved. Cortland Sutton, he had a touchdown reception last night, but he hasn't been very good. Jerry Jeudy, we heard about Steve Smith calling him out, and I agree with Steve Smith, but Jerry Jeudy has not lived up to expectations since he's been in the NFL either. And so I feel like when you look at this Denver Broncos team all around the board, they have been pathetic, offensively and defensively. And so they're paying Russell Wilson a lot of money, but Russ is not the same. He's not the same quarterback. And him and Sean Payton, they are not a fit from a quarterback head coach standpoint. They're not. They are not. And so they got some big decisions moving forward in Denver. And, I mean, I'm looking at the Denver Broncos, and at some point, the Broncos, they may turn to Jarrett Stidham. Jarrett Stidham, at some point, may start getting some snaps once the Broncos are out of the playoff hunt and they realize that their season is over. Because they got the Packers in week 7. That's a winnable game. My Packers have not been playing well, but that's a winnable game for the Broncos. But then in week 8, they got the Chiefs again in Denver. They're losing that game. And then I look at the rest of their schedule, the rest of the year. They got the Chiefs in week 8. Week 9, they have a bye. Week 10, they got the Bills. Week 11, they'll beat the Vikings. Maybe. I don't know. The Vikings have been awful so far this year as well. Week 12, they're home against the Browns. That could be a potential loss. And then week 13 against the Texans, C.J. Stroud's balling. That could be a game they could lose. And then week 14, they'll lose to the Chargers. So it's bad right now for the Broncos. They're not a good football team. As far as the Chiefs, I can't believe I'm saying this, but the Chiefs' defense is the strength of their football team right now, and the Chiefs' offense is the weakest part of their football team at the moment. Now, I expect Patrick Mahomes to have that offense rolling by the time we get to the playoffs, but right now, the Chiefs' defense has been elite in these first 6 games. Defensive coordinator Steve Spagnuolo deserves a boatload of credit. That defense is playing at a high level. It went up against Russ and the Broncos last night, so some of that you gotta take with a grain of salt because the competition matters. Competition matters. But remember, I believe it was week 3, whatever game they played against the Jaguars. It was week 2. Remember that Chiefs defense, They gave up yards in between the 20s, but they stopped the Jaguars in the red zone. That day, the Jaguars only had 9 points. 9 points. So the Jaguars were getting inside the red zone, but they could not score against that Chiefs defense. So you got to give a lot of credit to the Chiefs and that defense and how they are currently playing at the moment. Up front, we all know the best player on their defensive line and their best player overall defensively is Chris Jones. But you also up front, you got Mike Dana. At linebacker, you got Willie Gay. You got Nick Bolden, who's having a tremendous season. In the secondary, you got L'Jarius Sneed. You got Justin Reed. You got Brian Cook as well. This Chiefs defense is better in 2023 than I've seen it play in previous years. In the Chiefs era with Patrick Mahomes, this has been the best defense that he's ever had. This Chiefs defense. That's how great they are currently playing. And you gotta give them a lot of credit. You look at their statistics and defensive stats. They are top 10 in 4 out of 5 major categories defensively. They give up 299 total yards per game. That's ranked 5th in the NFL. They give up 184 passing yards per game. That's ranked 5th in the NFL. They only give up 15 points per game. That's ranked 2nd in the NFL. And teams are only able to convert on 36% of their third downs against that Chiefs defense. That is ranked 9th in the NFL. Give them credit. They're playing at a high level. And in these first 6 games, they have been the strength of this Chiefs football team. Now, offensively for the Chiefs, for whatever reason, the Chiefs, they play well in the first half, but in the second half, they don't play as well. This was before last night's game. The Chiefs had 88 points in the first half. They only have 40 points in the second half. The Chiefs have 10 touchdowns in the first half. They only have 4 touchdowns in the second half. They average 6.7 yards per play in the first half. They only average 4.9 yards per play in the second half. And in the first half, they have 11 20-yard or more plays. And in the second half, they only have 7 20 yards or more plays. So the Chiefs' offense has been inconsistent. We know how great Travis Kelce is, but we need to see some of these receivers on this Chiefs offense start to help Patrick Mahomes and the flow of this Chiefs offense. Marquez Valdes-Scantling, Kadarius Toney, Sky Moore. We saw Rice last night. He contributed last night. He had a few receptions. What did he have? 4 receptions, 72 receiving yards. So the Chiefs need at least just one receiver to step up and be that primary target for Mahomes in this Chiefs offense. And by December and January, I believe they'll be rolling, and they'll be a football team that's able to play complementary football. Because of the way their defense is currently playing, if they continue to play at this level, we know Mahomes and Kelce and Andy Reid is going to figure it out. They will figure this out. And it also, too, shows you that, and people don't want to talk about this, Eric Bieniemy, he's now the coordinator in Washington. He's the offensive coordinator for the Washington Commanders. Eric Bieniemy and his impact on this Chiefs offense in years prior cannot be something that we undersell, because his impact on this Chiefs offense over the last few years has been significant. Give Eric Bieniemy his flowers and his credit, because this Chiefs offense in these first 6 weeks have not played like we've accustomed to seeing them play over the last 4 or 5 years. Eric Bieniemy has a lot to do with that. But again, I expect Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, and Travis Kelce to figure things out the closer we get to December and January. But the Chiefs are sitting at 5-1. They are number 1 in the AFC West, and I expect them to win the AFC West as the season goes along and continue to ball out overall. I had them winning the AFC West coming into the season. I don't see nobody in the AFC West challenging them for the division crown. Chargers may make things competitive when they play the Chiefs, but for whatever reason, the Chargers can't beat the Chiefs either in games. So Chiefs are doing Chiefs things. They are 5-1 on the season. Everybody go and follow Wise Guys on Twitter at wiseguys_H. Also on Facebook, Wise Guys. And be sure to follow Wise Guys at Instagram at These Guys Know Sports. I'll be right back. And welcome back to Wise Guys. These Guys Know Sports. Here live on the Worldwide Sports Network. Everybody remember going follow Wise Guys on Twitter at wiseguys_H. Also on Facebook, Wise Guys. And be sure to follow Wise Guys on Instagram at These Guys Know Sports. The number to dial is 513-203-8655. 513-203-8655 is the number to dial. Any particular topic that you want to discuss, we can talk about it on the show today. Let's transition and let's go to the Queen City as the 3-1 Seattle Seahawks are traveling to Cincinnati to take on the 2-3 Cincinnati Bengals, as the Bengals are favored by 3 points. It's a 1 o'clock kickoff at Paycor Stadium. The over-under for this matchup is 44.5 points. So, when I look at this Seahawks versus Bengals matchup, honestly, when I looked at the schedule for Week 6, this was my most exciting matchup and the matchup that I was looking forward to watching the most on the slate of games in Week 6. This was the matchup between the Seahawks and the Bengals, a game where I'm like, I got to watch that game start to finish because I feel like these two teams are equivalent at the moment and are two teams who are very good football teams. But let's start off with the Seattle Seahawks. Obviously, the Seahawks are led by Geno Smith, and this season, Geno Smith has 5 touchdowns, 1 interception, 846 passing yards. He's completing 68% of his passes. I feel like when you look at Geno Smith, since he's been in Seattle, Geno Smith has revitalized his career. Look at Geno Smith and his 24 starts with the Seahawks. Geno Smith is averaging 238 passing yards per game. He has 39 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. His average yards per pass attempt is 7.4. He's completing 70% of his passes, and his passer rating is 101.2. I look at Geno Smith the same way I look at a Jared Goff. I feel like Jared Goff, when he's at his best, Jared Goff is a good quarterback. You can include Geno Smith in that conversation now because Geno Smith, since he's been in Seattle, he protects the football better. He's more of a leader among men, and him being in a better situation in Seattle has really, really helped his career. I'm looking at Geno Smith numbers, and when he was in New York, rookie season, 2013, 12 touchdowns, 21 interceptions. 2014, 13 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. So in New York, he turned the football over a lot. And since he's been in Seattle, he has protected the football. In 2021, 5 touchdowns, 1 interception, 702 passing yards. He only had a few starts in 2021. But last year, 30 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. He led the NFC in touchdown passes. So give Geno Smith credit for his ability to protect the football. And I look at this Seahawks offense. Obviously, you got DK Metcalf, you got Tyler Lockett. Both receivers had over 1,000 yards receiving last year. I love that 1-2 punch at the receiver position for the Seattle Seahawks. And at running back, you got Kenneth Walker III. I thought Kenneth Walker III had a tremendous rookie season, and he did a great job last year in his rookie year. Last year, Kenneth Walker, he had 228 carries, 1,050 rushing yards, 9 touchdowns, averaging over 4.5 yards per carry. He is a X factor for this Seahawks offense because of his ability to run between the tackles, and he creates mismatches as well for opposing teams because he can also catch the ball out of the backfield. He can also catch the ball out of the backfield, and that's something that the Seahawks haven't had consistently since Marshawn Lynch. That's something that they haven't had since Marshawn Lynch. And so I feel like Kenneth Walker, DK Metcalf, and Tyler Lockett, that trio has helped the Seahawks become one of the better teams in the NFC. And when I think about the Seattle Seahawks, coming into the season, everyone knew the favorites in the NFC were the 49ers and the Eagles. And then people said the team that could possibly challenge the Niners or the Eagles were the Cowboys. That's what everybody said. Oh, the Dallas Cowboys are the biggest threats to the Niners and to the Eagles. I am here to tell you today, heading into week 6, it is not the Dallas Cowboys who are the biggest threats to the Niners or the Eagles. It is the Seattle Seahawks, because the Seattle Seahawks are well coached. Pete Carroll is one of the more proven head coaches in the NFL. Geno Smith has elevated himself into that good quarterback conversation. He's not elite. We know Geno Smith is not Justin Herbert or Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, or Patrick Mahomes, but Geno Smith is a good quarterback. He's good like Jared Goff. Jared Goff will never be elite, but Geno Smith and Jared Goff are both good quarterbacks. And so I look at this Seahawks football team. I think that they are the biggest threats to the Niners and the Eagles in the NFC. And you look at their statistics, statistically, they haven't been great, especially on offense. They only average 336 total yards per game. That's ranked 20th in the NFL. But they do average 28 points per game. That's ranked 6th in the NFL. And in the first 4 weeks of the season, the Seahawks had 21 or more points in 3 out of their 4 games in the first 4 weeks of the season. They had 24 against the Giants. They could have scored more, but they took their foot off the gas pedal. They had 37 against the Panthers in week 3. They had 37 as well against the Lions in week 2. And their only bad game of the season came in week 1. The biggest shock of week 1 was the Rams beating the Seahawks in Seattle. They only scored 13 in that matchup. But going into that week 2 matchup, I remember telling everybody, Vegas had the Lions favored by like 6 over the Seahawks. And I said, this is ridiculous. Seattle, to me, they are better than Detroit is. But I will say, to Detroit's credit, I think the Lions and the Seahawks are on the same level. And then you have the Niners and the Eagles. And I'll throw the Cowboys in there as well. Cowboys, Lions, Seahawks are on the same level. And then there's the Niners and the Eagles. They're better than everyone in the NFC, probably in the NFL right now. But I think Seattle, they are the biggest threats to those top 2 teams. And even defensively, I love their defense and how they play on defense. Obviously, Devon Witherspoon had a tremendous performance in the week 4 matchup against the Giants. He was tremendous in that game. Let me pull up some of these stats from Devon Witherspoon because he was great in that game. Witherspoon was balling. He had 2 sacks. He had an interception return for a touchdown, 4 pressures. Devon Witherspoon had a sensational performance in the Monday night matchup against the Giants to end week 4. But defensively, you look at this Seahawks football team. At linebacker, you got Bobby Wagner. We know Bobby Wagner is Mr. Reliable. He left the Seahawks organization, went to the Rams, came back, and he's still playing at a high level. He is obviously their leader, but you still got Jordan Brooks. You got Devin Bush. So they got depth at linebacker in their secondary. They're going to get back Jamal Adams. You got Condre Diggs. He had an interception in the week 4 game against the Giants as well. And up front, you got Draymond Jones, Jaron Reed, Mario Edwards Jr. I like this Seahawks defense. I really, really do. Now, defensively, statistically, they're not great. They give up 393 total yards per game. That's ranked 26th in the NFL. But they are great against the run. They only give up 88 rushing yards per game. That's ranked 6th in the NFL. So I like this Seahawks football team. I like the way they've been playing. And this is going to be a tough matchup for the Bengals. Now, when I look at the Cincinnati Bengals, Joe Burrow, 5 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 1,045 passing yards. He's completing 62% of his passes so far this season. I felt like watching the Week 5 game against the Arizona Cardinals, what I was impressed with the most wasn't Joe Burrow and his performance necessarily from a statistical standpoint. It wasn't his stats that made me feel like the Bengals have hope. It was how he was moving. If you're a Bengal fan and you watch that Week 5 game against the Cardinals, you don't even care about how Burrow looked from a stat standpoint. You care about how he moved from a mobility standpoint. And in Week 5, Joe Burrow was mobile for the first time this season. He was able to kind of manipulate the pocket, and he was able to move up in the pocket a few times. He delivered some darts to Jamar Chase. And I that was the first time this season where I felt like that's the Joe Burrow I know. So Bengal fans, they had to feel optimistic after that game against the Cardinals, not because of Joe Burrow's statistics, but because of his mobility. And so that's going to be important in this matchup. And as the season goes along, quite frankly, because if Joe Burrow's not able to manipulate the pocket and not able to be mobile within the pocket, the Bengals have no chance at being able to make the playoffs. But they played well against the Cardinals, and Joe Burrow looked good for the first time this season from a mobility standpoint. The calves didn't seem like it was an issue at all. In that game, he went 36 of 46, 317 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. Jamar Chase, Mr. 7-Eleven, he is always open. He had 15 receptions, 192 receiving yards, 3 touchdowns. So the Bengals, they're going to get back T. Higgins, and T. Higgins is very important to this Bengals offense because if you have T. Higgins in the lineup, you can't double Jamar Chase. And I love the trash talk between Jamar Chase and Weatherspoon. I love the trash talk that we've heard this week. We've been hearing some trash talk between Devon Weatherspoon and Jamar Chase. I love that. But the good thing for the Bengals is they're going to get back T. Higgins. And if you got T. Higgins in the lineup, you can't double Jamar Chase because T. Higgins can make a play on the other side. He can make a play on the other side. Now, one of the things that I want Zach Taylor to do more of, and I said this last week and I'm going to say it again, the Bengals need to run the football more with Joe Mixon. This year, the Bengals are averaging 75 rushing yards per game. That's ranked 31st in the NFL. That's not going to get it done. That's not going to get it done. Against the Rams on a bad calf, Zach Taylor had Joe Burrow drop back to pass 49 times. 49 times on a bad calf. You have to run the football more with Joe Mixon. Hand the ball off to Joe Mixon. This year, Joe Mixon has 84 carries, 328 rushing yards, averaging close to 4 yards per carry, only 1 touchdown. He needs more opportunities in this Bengals offense. I know you have elite weapons like Jamar Chase, like T. Higgins, like Tyler Boyd. I say it all the time. The Bengals might have the best trio of receivers in the NFL with Boyd, Chase, and Higgins. But you have to run the football and not be a one-dimensional football team. We know Joe Burrow is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. When he's healthy, he's top 5 in my eyes, but you have to run the football more with Joe Mixon. And I feel like this year, Joe Mixon has ran the football effectively, and he's running harder this year. See, in previous years, there were Bengal fans who wanted P. Ryan, the running back now for the Denver Broncos. They wanted P. Ryan to get more carries than Mixon because P. Ryan ran the football harder and he ran with force. This year, Joe Mixon is running the football with force, and he's running in between the tackles and making guys miss. And so you have to depend on the running game if you want to be a true contender in the AFC. Now, defensively, they are led by defensive coordinator Lou Admiral. And to me, this year, the Bengals defensively, they have not been as good this season like they were in 2021 and 2022. And statistically, the defensive stats back it up. The Bengals defense, they give up 368 total yards per game. That's ranked 22nd in the NFL. They struggle to stop the run. They give up 154 rushing yards per game. That's ranked 31st in the NFL. They give up 23 points per game. That's tied for 19th in the NFL. And teams are able to convert on 41% of their third downs against that Bengals defense. That's ranked 21st in the NFL. That's not going to get it done. That's not going to get it done. And Bengal fans, they get mad when I tell the truth about this Bengals football team defensively. The Bengals, in their first 4 weeks of the season, the Bengals gave up 24 or more in their first 4 weeks of the season. Well, I'm sorry. I'm wrong. In week 3, they only gave up 16 to the Rams. But the Rams didn't have Cooper Kupp. The Rams had offensive line issues. I was wrong. They gave up 16 points to the Rams. But in 3 out of their 4 games, in the first 4 weeks of the season, the Bengals gave up 24 or more points. They gave up 24 to Deshaun Watson in week 1. They gave up 27 to Lamar Jackson and the Ravens in week 2. And they gave up 27 to Ryan Tannehill. And so they're not an elite defense. Right now, they're not a good defense. Now, they got playmakers defensively. Up front, you got DJ Reader, okay? I love their pass rush with Trey Hendrickson and Sam Hubbard. And at linebacker, you got Logan Wilson. He's one of the more underrated linebackers in the NFL. You still got Jermaine Pratt. But I got my questions about that Bengals secondary, specifically Nick Scott. I feel like Dax Hill has played well. Dax Hill has played well so far this season, but not Nick Scott. He's had some struggles on the back end in coverage for the Bengals. But you still got Cam Taylor-Britt. You still got Awuzie, who's trying to get back into a rhythm because he's fresh off that season-ending injury last year. But that Bengals defense, they're not good. They are a below-average defense at the moment, but this is going to be an opportunity for the Bengals to play well against a quality opponent because the Bengals beating the Cardinals, in my eyes, doesn't qualify for them to say we are officially back. But I look at the Bengals schedule over the next 3 weeks. The Bengals have the Seahawks in week 6. Week 7, they have a bye. Week 8, they have the 49ers off the bye week. And then week 9, they have the Bills. And this is going to be the stretch of the season that determines whether or not the Bengals make the playoffs. Because you can't go 0-3 in this stretch. You cannot fall to 2-6 as you head into that'll be week 10, I believe. You can't do it. So it's going to be really, really important for the Bengals to try to beat the Seahawks, because I feel like if the Bengals can beat the Seahawks, they can beat the Bills. I don't think they're going to beat the 49ers under any circumstances. They're not on the 49ers level at the moment. But if they can beat the Seahawks in week 6, you'll feel good about their chances to beat the Bills in week 9. But these next 3 games are going to determine whether or not the Bengals are a playoff contender in the AFC. If they can go 2-1 in this 3-game stretch, they'll still be in the mix and they'll be competing for a playoff spot. If they go 1-2, that's tough. If you lose to the Seahawks and the Bills, if you lose to the Seahawks and Bills, you're going to go 0-3 because you're not beating the 49ers. But if you beat the Seahawks and you lose to the Bills and the Niners, that's not going to be bad. You still have a chance at 3-5, maybe. But these next 3 games is going to be pivotal for the Bengals. But with all that being said, even though I feel like at their best, these 2 teams are equivalent, right now, the Seattle Seahawks are a better football team than the Bengals are. So I'm rolling with the Seattle Seahawks to beat the Cincinnati Bengals at Paycor Stadium 27-24. Everybody go and follow Wise Guys on Twitter at WiseGuys_H. Also on Facebook, Wise Guys. And be sure to follow Wise Guys at Instagram at These Guys Know Sports. I'll be right back. And welcome back to Wise Guys. These guys know sports. Here live on the Worldwide Sports Network. Everybody remember go and follow Wise Guys on Twitter at WiseGuys_H. Also on Facebook, Wise Guys. And be sure to follow Wise Guys on Instagram at These Guys Know Sports. Let's transition and let's go to the Monday night matchup in LA at SoFi Stadium as the Dallas Cowboys are traveling to the West Coast to take on the LA Chargers. The Cowboys are favored by 2.5 points. It's an 8:15 p.m. Eastern time kickoff. The over-under for this matchup is 50.5. So it's Dak Prescott versus Justin Herbert. So when I look at this Cowboys-Chargers matchup, this was the other matchup that I was the most excited about in Week 6. Monday Night Football, Dak Prescott and Justin Herbert, two quarterbacks who can fling that football. If you are a betting man or woman out there, go and take the over in this game. There will be a lot of points scored in this matchup. And it's on Monday Night Football on ESPN and ABC. They're in SoFi. So this is going to be a high-scoring affair. Let's start off with the Cowboys offensively. Offensively, they are led by Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott for the season, 5 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 1,061 passing yards. He's completing 69% of his passes. The biggest issue with the Cowboys as an overall football team, Dak Prescott cannot be trusted when the Cowboys need him the most. And in the regular season, Prescott will have some great performances. He will. There are times where Dak Prescott will put up numbers, a lot of yards, throw for 2-3 touchdowns in games. But when you need Dak Prescott the most, when you need him the most, he will not deliver for you. And last week, even though it was only week 5, this was a matchup against the 49ers. Well-anticipated matchup. Arguably the biggest game of the season. Sunday Night Football on NBC. Cowboys at Niners. And Dak Prescott goes out there and has only 153 passing yards, 3 interceptions. His quarterback rating was 51.6. He was pathetic last week. Flat out pathetic. And I'm going to get to that Cowboys defense here in a minute because I got some things to say about them as well. But the reason why the Dallas Cowboys cannot be taken seriously as Super Bowl contenders is because Dak Prescott is their quarterback. It's just that simple. He's not the kind of quarterback who can get it done. And over the last 2 years, well, let's go three games. Over the last 3 games against the 49ers. This is including the playoffs because the 49ers have beaten the Cowboys in the playoffs in 2021 and in 2022. The last 3 games against the Niners. Dak Prescott, 3 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. He's completing only 58% of his passes. His passer rating is 60.3, and he's averaging 204 passing yards per game. And he averages 5.9 yards per pass attempt. So when you need Dak Prescott the most against elite competition in big moments, he folds. And this is the reason why the Cowboys are not Super Bowl contenders. They're playoff contenders. They'll make the playoffs. They're not going to win the NFC East, but they'll be a wild card team in the NFC. But this is why they can't beat teams like the 49ers or like the Philadelphia Eagles in big moments because Dak Prescott is their quarterback. And I felt bad last week for CeeDee Lamb. I really did. CeeDee Lamb last week had 4 receptions for 49 receiving yards, but he wanted the football a few times and was open, and Prescott could not get him the football. I feel bad for CeeDee Lamb sometimes because CeeDee Lamb, he deserves to have an elite quarterback like Stephon Diggs has Josh Allen, like Jamar Chase has Joe Burrow. That's what CeeDee Lamb deserves as well. And Dak Prescott is not that guy. But he can win you some regular season games and have some great performances while doing so. But I feel like for the Cowboys to be successful, they need to run the football with Tony Pollard. Last week, they only had 57 rushing yards. Now, when you go up against the Niners are going to make things tough. They are one of the best, probably the best defensive team in the NFL. The Niners will when you play against the 49ers, you have to sometimes throw out the stats because the 49ers will embarrass you. Seriously. The 49ers are the best team in the NFL right now, and they will embarrass you. Look at the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers are 3-2 on the season. They're the number one team in the NFC North right now. Week 1, the 49ers beat the Steelers 30-7. Embarrassed the Steelers. So you got to throw out the stats with when you play the 49ers. And for the most part, the Cowboys have ran the football effectively this year. They averaged 124 rushing yards per game. That's ranked 10th. You got to run the football with Tony Pollard. You got to run the football with Tony Pollard and Deuce Vaughn as well. You got to run the football and take some pressure off of Dak. Got to take some pressure off of Dak. I also thought that in the game against the 49ers, Mike McCarthy, from a play calling standpoint, he didn't call a great game. Now remember, in the offseason, the Cowboys, they didn't blame Mike McCarthy for their shortcomings. They didn't blame Dak Prescott for their shortcomings. They blamed Kellen Moore. And Kellen Moore is the offensive coordinator now with the Chargers. So we blame Kellen Moore in the off. They didn't blame Prescott for his turnovers. They didn't blame Mike McCarthy for his bad decision making as a head coach. They blamed Kellen Moore. So against the 49ers, there were some times where I said, what are the Cowboys doing? The play calling was archaic. There was no creativity. When I look at the Niners, they're creative. They're getting guys open. When I look at the Dolphins with Mike McDaniel, they're getting guys open in motion. You see Tyreek Hill running in motion and just running once the ball is snapped and getting open. I don't see that creativity with the Cowboys. They need that. So Mike McCarthy has to get better as a play caller. He talked about how he wanted to take over the play calling duties, and he kicked Kellen Moore out of town. Now we need to see in big games whether or not Mike McCarthy is going to be able to make the right play calls as the head coach and essentially as the offensive coordinator of the Dallas Cowboys. We have to see it. We got to see it. Obviously, the Cowboys have CeeDee Lamb, and CeeDee Lamb, he's their best player offensively. For the season, CeeDee Lamb, 27 receptions, 358 receiving yards, only 1 touchdown. I also want to see in this Cowboys offense, I want to see if Michael Gallup can get back to playing at a high level. Remember, he had the injury a few years ago, and I don't feel like he's been the same since. This year, he only has 15 receptions for 180 receiving yards. Michael Gallup is supposed to be that true number 2 receiver in this Cowboys offense. Brandon Cooks, they traded for him in the offseason. He hasn't been great so far. He doesn't even have 100 yards receiving. So I expect Michael Gallup to get more opportunities in this Cowboys offense and be a dynamic duo with CeeDee Lamb. You need that. Like, when you look at the best teams in the NFL, the Dolphins, they have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. The Bengals have Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. The Buffalo Bills, they got Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs. The Cowboys desperately need a player to step up in their offense as a receiver, not named CeeDee Lamb. It needs to be Michael Gallup or Brandon Cooks so they can be that second option for Dak Prescott to throw the football to. You look at the Cowboys' offensive line. You got Tyler Smith at left guard. You got Tyron Smith at left tackle. At right guard, you got Zach Martin. You got Terrence Steele as well on the right side. Their offensive line is solid. The Dallas Cowboys, their line, it's not as good as it has been in years prior, but they're still good. Zach Martin is an all-pro. We know that Tyron Smith is also an all-pro. This Cowboys offensive line is solid. Now, defensively, for the Chargers, I'm looking at the Chargers' defensive statistics. You look at the Chargers, they give up 434 total yards per game. That's ranked 31st in the NFL. They give up 300 passing yards per game. That's ranked dead last in the NFL. They give up 26 points per game. That's ranked 24th in the NFL. So, Brandon Staley, his signature is supposed to be defense. But I look at this Chargers defense, and statistically, they are bottom in 4 out of 5 major statistical categories defensively. They are not a good defensive team. But when you look at their personnel, you would think they would be better. You got Joey Bosa. You got Khalil Mack. At linebacker, you also have Kenneth Murray Jr. in your secondary. You got Derwin James. You got Asante Samuel as well. So I feel like from a personnel standpoint, the Chargers should be better than they are defensively. What the hell is going on in LA from a defensive standpoint from the Chargers? They have been awful this year. Awful. And Brandon Staley, he is on the clock. He's on the clock. He lucky the Chargers were able to win their matchup against the Vikings. Remember, that was the game in which he went for it on 4th down in his own territory and gave Kirk Cousins a chance to win that game late. They beat the Raiders by 7. I thought they should have blown out the Raiders, but they only won by 7 points, and that was a game where Jimmy Garoppolo didn't even play. So the Chargers have to get better. They have to get better. Last week against the Raiders, when they had a bad week in week 5. I'm sorry, they had a bad week in week 5, and week 4 against the Raiders with a backup quarterback. The backup quarterback is Aiden O'Connell. The Raiders had 264 total yards of offense with the backup quarterback. That's not going to get it done. Not going to get it done. So they have to be better. Now, when you look at the Chargers offense versus the Cowboys defense, the Chargers are led by Justin Herbert. For the season, Justin Herbert has 7 touchdowns, 1 interception, 1,106 passing yards. He's completing 71% of his passes. Justin Herbert is a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. And if he continues to play at this level, he will be a top 5 quarterback by season's end. If the Chargers make the playoffs and can make some noise in the playoffs. Herbert is playing well. And I said it before, and I'm going to say it again. The Chargers don't have a quarterback issue. They have a coaching issue in L.A. when it comes to the L.A. Chargers. You look at the Chargers offensively. They average 409 total yards per game. That's ranked 4th in the NFL. They average 269 passing yards per game. That's ranked 6th in the NFL because of Justin Herbert. And they average 28 points per game. That's ranked 7th in the NFL. So in 3 out of the 5 major categories offensively, the Chargers are top 10 in 3 of those 5 categories offensively. So Justin Herbert is an elite quarterback, and he's playing at a high level right now. He's playing at a high level. The thing with the Chargers is they're going to get back Austin Eckler this week. And you want the Chargers to run the football more with Eckler. I like Austin Eckler a lot, but he hasn't played much this year. And Joshua Kelly was his replacement. And he's played well. 57 carries, 207 rushing yards, averaging over 3.5 yards per carry. But Eckler is better than Kelly. So Eckler is going to help this Chargers offense. And they're going to need that element as the season goes along, because they don't have Mike Williams anymore. Mike Williams had a season-ending injury a few weeks ago, so he's out for the year. And so now in that Chargers receiving room, you still got Keenan Allen, but you got Joshua Palmer, who has replaced Mike Williams, and you got Darius Davis as well. But they're going to need to rely on Austin Eckler. He's going to be a major X factor as the season goes along. Now, when I look at the Cowboys defense, this is Jaron Curse. He was talking about the Cowboys defense. This was after the 42-10 beatdown that took place in San Francisco last week. Jaron Curse, quote, "We are a great defense. That's what we are. We weren't crowned the best defense in the league when we had a 40-0 win over the Giants, and we're not going to be named the worst defense in the league after what happened on Sunday." Mr. Curse, sir, your Cowboys, y'all are not a great defense. You can't be a great defense because you shut down Daniel Jones, Zach Wilson, and Mac Jones. You can't be labeled or considered an elite defense because you were able to beat the Giants, Patriots, and Jets, three teams who have below average quarterbacks. And I'm being nice. I'm trying to be nice. Daniel Jones, Zach Wilson, and Mac Jones are below average quarterbacks. They are the worst quarterbacks in the NFL. I probably would take Joshua Dobbs over Mac Jones, Daniel Jones, and Zach Wilson right now. Seriously. I feel like Joshua Dobbs has had a better season than all of those three quarterbacks I just named. So how the hell are the Cowboys still considering themselves an elite defense? You're not. You're not an elite defense. They're good. They got some elite playmakers like Micah Parsons and Trayvon Diggs when he's healthy, but they're not elite. They're good. But you know what else the Dallas Cowboys overall as a football team? They're front runners. The Dallas Cowboys are front runners as a football team. And when they play against elite competition, they fold. They fold every single time. I love Micah Parsons. I think Micah Parsons is one of the best defensive players in the NFL. But this Cowboys defense, they have feasted on inferior competition at the quarterback position and offenses that are well below average in the Giants, Jets, and Patriots. So the way Brock Purdy looked like the second coming of Joe Montana last Sunday night in San Francisco. He looked like the second coming of Joe Montana, a mixture of Joe Montana and Steve Young, the way he was performing against that Cowboys elite defense. So I have not been impressed with the Cowboys defensively. They're good. Could they be great by the end of the season? Possibly. But I have to see how they perform against elite competition. They'll get a chance this week because the Chargers, in my eyes, with Herbert, they have an elite quarterback. And they have what I would consider an elite offense. Week 9, the Cowboys, they're in Philly. We'll see how they perform against that Eagles offense. And then they had week 13, they are home against the Seahawks. Let's see how they perform against the Seahawks. 14, they're home against the Eagles again. Week 15, they are in Buffalo. This is the Cowboys I'm talking about. And then week 16, they are in Miami. We'll find out how elite that Cowboys defense is by season's end. So with all that being said, I think this is going to be a high-scoring affair, and I think it's going to be a great game between two good quarterbacks. I think Herbert could be great. Dak Prescott has maximized his potential. He's good, but not great. So with all that being said, I'm rolling with the LA Chargers to beat the Dallas Cowboys at SoFi Stadium. I'm going Justin Herbert, 31, Dak Prescott, 24. Everybody go and follow Wise Guys on Twitter at WiseGuys_OH. Also on Facebook, Wise Guys. And be sure to follow Wise Guys on Instagram at These Guys Know Sports. I'll be right back. Welcome back to Wise Guys. These Guys Know Sports. Here live on the Worldwide Sports Network. Everybody remember go and follow Wise Guys on Twitter at WiseGuys_OH. Also on Facebook, Wise Guys. And be sure to follow Wise Guys on Instagram at These Guys Know Sports. Let's transition and let's go to my week 5 top/disappointing performers segment. Let's go to my top performer for week 5. It is Travis Etienne, the running back for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Travis Etienne, 26 carries, 136 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns, averaging over 5 yards per carry. He helped Trevor Lawrence and the Jacksonville Jaguars beat the Buffalo Bills 25-20 in London, a game in which the Jaguars desperately needed. Travis Etienne is my top performer of week 4. My most disappointing performer of week 4 is none other than Dak Prescott for the Dallas Cowboys. I don't know why I'm so shocked or why I was so disappointed in Dak, considering that Dak doesn't perform well in big games. But I thought this was going to be a change for the better for Dak and the Cowboys, and something that Cowboy fans could look forward to as we get into December and January and into playoff football. I feel like this was an opportunity because the stakes are still kind of low because it's only a regular season game. And Dak Prescott went out there and he was pathetic in week 5. Prescott 14-24. So he is my disappointing performer for week 4. Again, I shouldn't be surprised, but I expected this to be an opportunity for Prescott to prove that maybe he can be a better performer in big games for the Cowboys. Did not happen. He is my worst performer of week 4 player-wise. Now, my best performer from a team perspective of week 5 is the San Francisco 49ers. The 49ers, their 42-10 win over the Dallas Cowboys. They are now 5-0 on the season. They are not only the best team in the NFC West, not only the best team in the NFC, they are the best team right now in the NFL. The 49ers that had the most disappointing performance of week 5 are the Baltimore Ravens. The Baltimore Ravens had a 10-0 lead over the Pittsburgh Steelers. Everything was going wrong for Kenny Pickett and the Pittsburgh Steelers. They had nothing rolling offensively. They were not able to move the ball at all. And the Baltimore Ravens had opportunities, multiple opportunities, to beat the Pittsburgh Steelers in week 5, and they couldn't get it done. 8 drops for the Baltimore Ravens against the Steelers last week. 8 drops. 2 of those 8 passes were touchdown passes if the Ravens receivers hold on to the football. So I feel like the Ravens falling to 3-2, they are my worst performance of week 5. The Ravens had an opportunity to do something special. If they would have beaten the Steelers, they would have beaten all 3 teams in their division on the road, which means the Steelers, Bengals and Browns would have had to play the Ravens in Baltimore the second time they played against each other. So the Ravens, in my eyes, had the most disappointing performance team-wise in Week 5. Everybody go and follow Wise Guys on Twitter at WiseGuys_H. Also on Facebook, Wise Guys. And be sure to follow Wise Guys on Instagram at These Guys Know Sports. Coming out the break, I'm going to give my Week 6 Wise picks. I'll be right back.
If you'd only been the kind of girl you dreamed of, we wouldn't be here now, would we? And if you'd only seen all the things you needed, we wouldn't be here now, would we?
And welcome back to Wise Guys. These Guys Know Sports. Here live on the Worldwide Sports Network. Everybody remember go and follow Wise Guys on Twitter at WiseGuys_H. Also on Facebook, Wise Guys. And be sure to follow Wise Guys on Instagram at These Guys Know Sports. It's time for my favorite segment of the week. It is my NFL Week 6 Wise Picks. These are my Wise Picks for Week 6. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, these predictions you can hold me accountable for, and I will go over my results at the end of the season for my record for my weekly Wise Picks. So let's get into my Week 6 Wise Picks. A game that will be played in London. The Baltimore Ravens, who are favored by 4 points, they are playing Ryan Tannehill and the Tennessee Titans, 9:30 a.m. kickoff. The over-under for this matchup is 41.5. I believe the Baltimore Ravens are a better football team than the Tennessee Titans are. Lamar Jackson is better than Ryan Tannehill is. Tennessee does play. They do play the Ravens tough, but I expect the Ravens to beat the Titans. I'll go Baltimore 24, Tennessee 17. The Washington Commanders are traveling down south to take on Desmond Ridder and the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons are favored by 2.5 points. It's a 1 o'clock kickoff in Atlanta. The over-under for this matchup is 42.5. This game will be close. The Commanders, at times, can score a lot of points. They had over 30-plus points, I believe, in their matchup against the Eagles. The Commanders had 31. They had 31 points against the Eagles in a loss. So sometimes the Commanders can score a lot of points, but they always lose games. This game is going to be close. Sam Howell and Desmond Ridder are on the same level as far as I'm concerned, but I'm going to give the slight nod to Desmond Ridder considering his team is at home. I'm rolling with the Falcons to beat the Commanders 23-20. The San Francisco 49ers are traveling to the East Coast to take on the Cleveland Browns. It's a 1 o'clock kickoff in Cleveland. The over-under for this matchup is 37.5. The Niners are favored by 9 points. Initially, when this line came out, the Niners were only favored by 5 points, but it's up to 9 now because Deshaun Watson is officially out for Week 6. With Deshaun Watson being out, the 49ers will take care of business against the Browns. Even with Deshaun, this is going to be a tough matchup for the Browns, but I would have gave them a slim chance considering they had 2 weeks to prepare for the 49ers. No Deshaun Watson, no chance for the Browns. I'll go 49ers 31, Browns 10. The New Orleans Saints, favored by 1.5 points, are traveling to Houston to take on C.J. Stroud and the Houston Texans. It's a 1 o'clock kickoff. The over-under for this matchup is 41.5. The Saints beat the Patriots last week, but that doesn't mean much. The Patriots are a pathetic football team. I think the Saints are a playoff team in the NFC, and I think they are slightly better than the Texans are right now. So I'm rolling with the Saints to beat the Texans 21-20. Bryce Young and the Carolina Panthers are traveling to Miami to take on Tua Tagovailoa and the Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins are favored by 13.5 points. It's a 1 o'clock kickoff in Miami. The over-under for this game is 47.5. This game won't be close. The Panthers are 0-5. They'll be 0-6 by the end of this game. This game will not be close. I'm going with the Dolphins to beat the Panthers in Miami. Dolphins 37, Panthers 10. A AFC South battle in Jacksonville. The Indianapolis Colts are traveling to Jacksonville to take on Trevor Lawrence and the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jaguars are favored by 4 points. It's a 1 o'clock kickoff in Jacksonville. The over-under for this matchup is 44.5. The Colts have played well in these first 5 weeks of the season. Somehow, they are 3-2 on the season. Their biggest win came against Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens in week 3. But I don't feel like they're going to have enough to beat the Jacksonville Jaguars. I feel like the game last week for the Jaguars, beating the Bills, gave them some confidence. And I feel like they are the best team in the AFC South, despite the first 5 weeks. I'm rolling with the Jaguars to beat the Colts in Jacksonville. I'll go Jags 23, Colts 17. An NFC North battle in Chicago. The Minnesota Vikings, favored by 3 points, are traveling to Chicago to take on Justin Fields and the Chicago Bears. It's a 1 o'clock kickoff. The over-under for this matchup is 43.5. This game could go either way. There's no Justin Jefferson for the Minnesota Vikings, but there is a DJ Moore for the Chicago Bears. I'm starting DJ Moore on my fantasy team. I learned my lesson after this performance last week against the Commanders. I'm rolling with the Bears to beat the Vikings 20-17. The New England Patriots are traveling to Vegas to take on Jimmy Garoppolo and the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders are favored by 3 points. It's a 4:05 p.m. kickoff. The over-under for this matchup is 41.5. Neither one of these two teams will be playoff teams. I don't believe that either of these teams are very good football teams. I know the Raiders beat the Packers on Monday night, but I wasn't really impressed with that performance. That was more so Jordan Love playing a bad football game than the Raiders actually winning that game. But the Patriots have been pathetic this year. They've been awful. So I'm rolling with the Raiders to beat the Patriots. I'm going Raiders 17, Patriots 16. The Detroit Lions, favored by 3.5 points, are traveling to Tampa Bay to take on Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers. It's a 4:25 p.m. kickoff. The over-under for this matchup is 42.5. The Bucs are fresh off a bye week, and in their first 4 weeks of the season, the Buccaneers are 3-1, and they have been the biggest surprise so far in the NFC South this year. And so I'm rolling with the Bucs in an upset. This is my week 6 upset pick of the week. Mark it down. I'm rolling with the Bucs to beat the Lions in Tampa. I'll go Bucs 24, Lions 21. The Arizona Cardinals are traveling to L.A. to take on Matthew Stafford and the L.A. Rams. The Rams are favored by 7.5 points. It's a 4:25 kickoff. The over-under for this matchup is 48.5. The Rams are better than the Cardinals are, but I think the Cardinals keep this game close early, but I think the Rams pull away in the second half. Cooper Kupp had over 100 yards receiving in his season debut last week against the Eagles. I expect Cooper Kupp to have the kind of impact in week 6 that he had in week 5. So I'm rolling with the Rams to beat the Cardinals 21-17. And it will be competitive. The Philadelphia Eagles and Jalen Hurts, they are favored by 7 points. They are traveling to New York to take on the Jets at MetLife Stadium. It's a 4:25 p.m. kickoff. The over-under for this matchup is 40.5. The Jets are not a great football team. They're not even a good football team. The Philadelphia Eagles are a great football team, and Jalen Hurts is way better than Zach Wilson is. I'm rolling with the Eagles to beat the Jets. Eagles 31, Jets 13. The Sunday night matchup in Buffalo. The Giants are traveling to New York. They're in New York, right there in the same state, to take on Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. No Daniel Jones for this matchup. He is out for this game. The Bills are favored by 14.5 points. It's an 8:20 p.m. kickoff. This game won't be close. It wasn't going to be close even if Daniel Jones played. With that being said, I'm rolling with the Bills to beat the Giants in Buffalo. I'll go Bills 28, Giants 10. This week, there are no predictions for my beloved Green Bay Packers. This week, I finally get a chance to just watch and not have my heart into a specific game. I can just watch as an NFL fan and watch these games in week 6. Those are my NFL week 6 Wise picks. Everybody go and follow Wise Guys on Twitter at WiseGuys_H. Also on Facebook, Wise Guys. And be sure to follow Wise Guys at Instagram at These Guys Know Sports. Have a great weekend, everybody. I'm Trey Larkins, signing off the Worldwide Sports Network. Remember, go and follow Wise Guys on Twitter at WiseGuys_H. Also on Facebook, Wise Guys. Be sure to follow Wise Guys on Instagram at These Guys Know Sports. Peace.